right off the bat that you've worked with Martin Scorsese and Steven Spielberg and Francis Ford Coppola, and you've been in movies with Gene Hackman and with Dustin Hoffman, and get to all that in due time. But the most important thing is that you were in Viva Las Vegas.
With the king. I think it is important. It's the most important.
Does it stand even now as the highest plateau that you've scaled?
Not exactly. You know, it was fun. That was the first job I ever did in a movie, and I danced in that movie. I was a dancer. And we filmed some scene in a gym in Culver City. Elvis, the king, and Anne Margaret, the princess, or whatever she was. And it was great working with him. I was scared of him.
Did you speak with him at all?
Sure.
And you found him to be what sort of personality?
He seemed very nice. You know, what can I say? He actually came up and talked to me. So that you girls all work around here? I don't know what he was talking about. And he went out with this roommate of mine after that. So he used to invite us to his house to these parties. But they weren't really parties. They were like Elvis and these girls.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Elvis as the sole male there?
He was kind of taking advantage of his position a little bit. But what the heck?
And he would have a dozen girls in and then just kind of weed out the ones he wanted, or?
I don't know exactly what he did, but he would just sort of say, have some girls up to the house, play a little pool. So I had to check it out once.
It's most girls' idea of a dream date, kind of play a little 8-ball and sit around a paneled basement kind of thing.
Well, it depends on the girl, I guess. I don't know. I was interested.
In Elvis?
No, I was mostly interested in everything about making movies at the time. I went on this movie set for the first time and checked out the whole scene, you know, who holds these cables and who runs the cameras and who's got the power and who's got trailers and who's got chairs. And you know, it was all new to me. It was like, you know, like when you first go to high school, you check out the caste system. So I was more interested in that, although I was interested in Elvis because he was so fascinatingly talented person, and he was running this thing. I mean, it was all there because of him. But I don't think he knew what to do with it either, so ultimately...
At that point, the magnetism had not given way to whatever degenerate tendencies eventually overtook him. I mean, at that point, he was still a magnetic and charismatic figure?
No, but I think that was the beginning of the end for him. This was like, in the 60s, he started doing all these bad movies that he had no right being in because he was this brilliant entertainer in front of a live audience. And he started doing, you know, they were just sort of selling him out. It was sort of like Faust, where we'll take your soul and we'll put you in all these movies. And
he made a zillion of them,
He was like, okay, and he did it, but I think it was the beginning of the end because ultimately then you're not satisfied with yourself and then you start doing destructive things. This is all theory. I could be wrong, but I don't think I am.
Was Viva Las Vegas really a good introduction, as you look back on it, to the film industry? Or were they cranking those things out so fast, with so little attention to detail, that it was misleading?
Yeah, I had nothing to compare it to. I mean, I was always a big fan of movies, and I wanted to see how they were made. But once I was a dancer, and once I got into this dancing thing, you know, they just keep calling you, dance in this movie, dance in that movie. I danced in some movies with Shirley MacLaine, no, that's the Elvis one. What was that one? I'm sorry, I'm...
Oh, that's all right.
What are they? John Goldfarb, Please Come Home was one of them. And What a Way to Go was another one, where I tap danced on a boat deck with Gene Kelly. But it was like the tail end of movie musicals. They were kind of going out. So I didn't get a big chance to check it out.
Your mom and dad had both been in show business. Your father was a vaudevillian. So now you find yourself tap dancing with Gene Kelly. I mean, that had to set off some kind of fantasy notions of what show business is about.
Well, I don't know. You've done your homework on me, haven't you?
A little bit.
You're going to get a very good grade.
Well, thank you. That's what I'm bucking for here.
Well, you're going to get one. Anyway, well, no, actually, Gene Kelly knew my parents. So to me, it was all just another, you know, I actually, though, was just starting out, and I was in the apprenticeship period of my life. So I just figured being in the chorus of something and learning about something was only a step. For me, it wasn't the end. It was just, you know, get out of my way.
Yeah.
Pushy little thing.
Something I was unaware of. I never saw this Monkees movie. But you were in the Monkees movie in the late 60s. What was it called? Head? And Jack Nicholson wrote the screenplay for this thing? This is a big gap in my cultural background. What was this movie like?
You know what? Because that movie only played for 2 weeks on Hollywood Boulevard. Not a lot of people got to see it. 24 people got to see it. You weren't one of them.
But 24 of the luckiest Americans, I guess.
Lucky. Well, I was in this acting class at the time, and it was a real interesting acting class, and Jack was in the class, and Jack was just a writer then, just a writer, or he was doing some kind of motorcycle movies at AIP, and he wrote this movie, and he wrote several girls in the class little parts, you know, one-line parts in the movie. So I got to do one of those one-line parts. And I mentioned that once to somebody that was interviewing me, and everyone really asked me about it. I don't think it's that big a deal. But it was, you know, I said one line in the Monkees movie, right.
Was this sort of like, did Nicholson conceive this kind of as the Monkees' Hard Day's Night? Was it just the Monkees being the Monkees?
Well, I don't think it was his idea. Jack Rafelson and Bert Schneider had the Monkees, and they exactly wanted to put the Beatles on TV, so they got these 4 guys and made them be, you know, fake Beatles.
Yeah.
I was appalled at the idea, but I figured.
But you know, one thing about the Monkees, and you got to give them credit for this. Yeah. It was as if you picked 4 guys out of the telephone book, because they were not musicians. They were actors and TV types or whatever. Mickey Dolenz had been circus boy, he was up on the back of an elephant or whatever, and all of a sudden they started playing music. They did wind up being a musical group.
But were they any good?
Well, they weren't great. But they weren't actually, in retrospect, a few of their hits were okay, taken on their own terms, right?
So the moral of this story is, you don't get something for nothing. I mean, they were just picked out of the phone book and made to be like fake Beatles, and then they gave them, maybe Phil Spector or somebody did their albums, and they sort of made them sound good. They could have made me sound, you know.
Yeah, Neil Diamond wrote a couple of their early records, I think.
Really?
Yeah, he wrote I'm a Believer.
But, you know, it sort of all comes out in the wash, doesn't it, at the end? They went, after 2 years, people go, wait a second, these aren't the Beatles. These are like jerks.
Yeah, and it took 2 years. Nice after 2 years, finally, people going, these guys aren't the Beatles. Now I get it.
Yeah.
Terri Garr, we gotta stop.
No, you can't stop. I can't stop.
Were you in mid-sentence?
No.
No. We can stop then. Terri Garr, tonight on Later.
I got my mind set on you. 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 And this time I know it's real. The feeling that I feel. I know if I put my mind to it, I know that I really can do it. I got my mind set on you. Set on you. I got my mind set on you. Set on you.
Had a lot of fun. Do you have any Seconal?
Come on, I'll take you home.
I did have a good time. I really did, Mike.
Oh, you did? Wait a minute. I didn't bring enough money for cab fare.
That's okay. It's cheaper to get mugged. Let's walk.
Sure.
The fares are really insane now anyway.
Why didn't you have a good time?
I did have a good time.
What's wrong?
Nothing's wrong.
What? What?
Nothing. I'm nothing. I'm perfectly fine. I just cry like this, like a tick.
Will you tell me what's wrong or I'll kill you?
Nothing's wrong, Michael. I'm really very up.
You're worried about your audition tomorrow, aren't you?
No, I'm not worried about that audition.
Why?
Because
Why
I'm not
are you
going to
so
get
worried?
it. I'm not going to get it.
Why not?
Because I'm completely wrong for it.
Why? What kind of a part is it?
A woman.
Okay, we're back with Terri Garr. We just saw a clip from Tootsie, and they tell me, and you're going to give me good grades again for the homework, they tell me that you ad-libbed a lot of the stuff you did in that.
Ad-libbed? Well, yeah. I mean, I rewrote it. I didn't exactly ad-lib it when the camera started. But he let me write in some of my own ideas.
How different did your own ideas become from what had been thrust in front of you to start with?
Well, you know, this is, Sidney Pollack is a great director, and he just would ask me things about the character. And I said, you know, it seems to me that the woman, it was much flatter. The girl was just one level. And I said it would be much more interesting if she had another side to her, if she was very confused about being a feminist and being, where does she fit in society? And I started doing all this research on feminist literature, and some of it was quite amusing to me. So he let me put that in there. And
that's where the I'm responsible for my own orgasm thing came from?
I
mean, that was kind of a theme in feminist literature at that time.
Yes, right? It was. It was a very colorful one. It was, I think, from a Sherry Height book. You
were up for the role that Jessica Lange played, for the leading role.
Oh, absolutely not. In fact, I wondered why I wasn't up for that part.
You weren't up for it?
No.
Now, you see, here's where the homework has failed me.
I'm sorry. This goes
Shoot
on your
one
grade.
of the researchers, just arbitrarily.
It goes on your grade. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's a demerit.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So you weren't up for that role?
No, as a matter of fact, when they were casting the movie Tootsie, I will tell this story at this point.
It's a good point.
All of my friends were up for this movie. I mean, my exercise teacher was up there. Everyone was going in to meet Dustin and having auditions for this movie. And I would say to my agent, am I going to get an audition for this movie? And he'd say, no, there's nothing in it for you, that you're not right for it. See, but everybody, I want to go up for this movie. No, you're not really right for it. So then Elaine May, who is this brilliant writer, wrote a second draft of it and fleshed out that character and said, and the only person that can play that part is Terri Garr. Well, then it was a horse of a different color, wasn't it? Because my agent said, well, they want to see you. I said, oh, really? Really? Anyway.
At this point, was your agent the 96-year-old guy?
No. How'd you know about him?
It's research,
okay.
research,
The
research.
grade's going back. Okay.
You had a 96-year-old agent?
Yeah.
What was this guy like? Is he still with us?
I think he's in the big circuit in the sky.
He's in the big circuit, or else
Yeah.
he would have been 100.
Yeah, that's right. He was great. His name was David Samuels, I think. No, he was one of my very first...
Even you think the guy was your agent? You
Well,
can't
it was a
remember his
long
name?
time ago, and he was like one of my first agents. He also handled strippers and stuff, but he couldn't drive because he was very, very old. And I used to drive him around to the studios with the, where he would go to the casting offices for looking at the breakdowns for TV series. I mean, this is he was another friend of the family, believe me. Anyway, I would go take him there. He always used to say, we would drive up to 20th, he'd say, I'm going to get Daryl Zanuck to meet you today. I have your picture right here in the pocket. And he'd come back, and I'd say, well, I'd be sitting there with the motor running. Well, should I park? Am I going in?
No, don't park. We're going to see Sam Goldwyn next.
Not today. He's busy today, but let's go across town over to Culver City. And anyway, he was my agent. He was sweet. He died, and then it was very hard for me to get another agent. because when you have one agent, then you can go to another agent. You can say, I'm thinking of leaving so-and-so. It's all fake stuff.
So did this guy get you, through his keen insight and connections in the business, all kinds of opportunities?
Well, once again, I was learning. See, I was learning from the ground floor. And also...